Bart, to the What podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, well, it's really great to get to know you. And I would love for you to just start by sharing what you want to share about your profile to the audience, and then we can get started.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Bart Schouten. I'm from the Netherlands. That's why I say that.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so I've been a speed skating coach for basically my whole life. University, college, did everything I could to become the best speed skating coach I can be. I've been very lucky to work with great athletes. I've been able to go to Olympics and athletes have won Olympic medals. So that's really something that I love to do. I'm still doing that. My own business. It's called Schouten Coaching, like Performance Coaching International, and there's two parts to that business. One is coaching athletes, but the
Mhm.
other part is coaching sports coaches. So that's why I chose to do the education with Canada Coach Academy because I really wanted to find a different way of communicating with coaches and not just have conversations, but actually learn how to coach people. And so it's been very valuable for me to do this education and really be yeah, more mindful, I'd say, in my conversations and ask better questions to these coaches. So yeah, those are the two parts of my business, and I like combining them. So yeah, very happy
And
to
where
be
are
doing it.
you right now in the world? Where are you living?
I'm in Calgary in
Calgary.
Canada.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So there's a
Okay.
great oval here that was used for the 1988 Olympics.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit older and it needs some funding, so to get some renewals done. But it's a great
Okay.
place to live. Calgary is a nice city. So yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I'm from Edmonton.
okay.
I
Okay.
was born and raised in Edmonton and then moved to Montreal with my parents when I was 15. So
Oh,
I'm
okay. Oh
familiar
no.
with Calgary. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice place. I'm a little bit familiar with Edmonton. It's a nice city, and
Well,
yeah,
it's a rival city, you know. You guys,
yeah.
there's always some energy there, right?
The hockey teams are always fighting each other. Battle of Alberta. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I
Yeah.
lived there at the time when Gretzky and Paul Coffey were walking the streets of like Jasper Avenue, and you would basically see them anywhere. It was kind of really
Oh
cool.
wow. Well, nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know that that would happen today, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious about the place where, the type of coaching we do and athletics meets. We've had many athletes actually through the program, coaches as
Mhm.
well, different sports. And I'm just curious to know for you, like, how did the two come together for you?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. I think the world is changing a little bit. I think athletes are changing. I think athletes in the past they were just used to being told what to do by a coach and just do it, not ask questions. I think over the last years they've started to ask more questions, which is great, I think. But I do think it's more important than ever for coaches to connect with their athletes. So in the sports world, there's definitely a shift happening, and that's the other reason why I wanted to do this coaching course because I felt like maybe a better way of communicating is asked of us coaches, like sports coaches, and I wanted to learn more about a different way of coaching. So I felt like coaching conversations are the way I learn them now in the coaching course. I think is really an interesting way. And there's a couple of concepts that have come up for me that I think are really interesting. And the first one is about coaching the person and not the problem. I think that's quite interesting concept for me because coaches we're very well educated in the X's and O's and the tactics and the technical things, and we know a lot about our sport. But I think we don't get enough education in educating, or sorry, we don't get enough education in working with people. So I think we can all improve in there, and that's basically the part of my coaching business that I focus on how to have better conversations with your athletes, how to manage them better, how to maybe get to know them better. So coaching the person and not the problem. I work with speed skating, so I really want to focus on speed skating technique. But it's such a small part of an athlete's being or an athlete's performance that it is a little bit too focused on coaching the problem and not the person. And so that's one concept I really relate to and feel has really helped me to see the athlete more holistic as a whole person and not just as an athlete. So there's a transformation is a big word, but I think in coaching we were very transactional in the past. So you pay me, I coach you, or it's like listen to me and I'll help you, or so it's different. And I think right now it's more about a relationship. It's a deeper relationship. It's more about coaching the person than coaching, let's say, a technical aspect of the sport. So I think that's one concept that I think is super interesting. Um,
Mm.
and then the other concept that I think connects to more to the changing times um, is that the coachee has all the answers. So as a coach, obviously in the past we were just dictating, telling athletes all the time what to do, and that's gradually shifted. But I think a bigger shift is needed in the sports world. I'm not sure the sports world is ready for it. Not sure every sport or every coach is ready for it. But I do think it is the way to go. And so I'm not saying every athlete has all the answers, but I've experienced over the years that the the more elite athletes actually know a lot of what they need and what works for them. And as a sports coach, I think it's super important to connect to these athletes and ask them what they know. And I
Mhm.
think and what they feel and how they think they can get better. And that definitely wasn't done in the past. And so for me, it's really interesting to see how I can use the coaching dialogue and what we're learning in let's say the Canada Coach Academy and how to apply that into the sports world and how I can get more connected with the athletes individually, but also get them to think more about what they think they need and what makes them better by asking better questions. So through this coaching course, I think I'm learning to ask better questions and learning to get these athletes to think more about themselves and come up with their own answers and better answers. And I think in that deeper relationship and the connection, I think we can come to better solutions that to help the athlete progress faster. Yeah, it takes maturity of the athletes, and it takes a certain, maybe it's even a cultural aspect because I've worked in East Germany where athletes were not allowed to think before, and it was a real big shift for me to ask these athletes to think more what they were thinking, what they were feeling. Some of them didn't like it; they just wanted to be told what to do and not think at all, which is quite interesting. But it's shifting, and especially here in Canada, I think athletes want more input and they want more connection more than ever, I think. And yeah, I think I'm learning through these two concepts. So, coach the person, not the problem. I think that's a big concept. And the second concept about the coach, he has all the answers. I won't get that far, but I think in the sports world, I think if you as a coach you learn to listen to your athletes, I think you're helping them better and you're coming to better performances. So
Mm. Yeah, you're making me think of increased internal and external awareness as the coach, right? That's what you're there to do. Your observations are helping your athletes reflect on sort of the impact of what their intuition is, right?
yes,
So,
yeah,
and your questions elevate their self-awareness. Also, you get to share your observations on, well, did you notice that when you were running your foot was tilting out a little bit, or did you notice when
mhm,
you were skating, your
yes,
posture came up around the bend? Like those are the things that they don't notice because they can't. They're too focused on their task, right? When they're in the
mhm,
sport. So I think what I've noticed in terms of athletics and the athletes that I've spoken to, it's really about that increased awareness that we can't get in self-observation. And that, like even on a football field. You know, the coach has the view of all the players, where each player, you're in the game. It's harder to see the bigger
Mhm.
picture, right? So
Yes,
I think
exactly.
that this is where I'm seeing, and there's a great book by George Mumford called The Mindful Athlete.
Hmm.
It's a little bit of that, you know, that theme. I haven't read all of it. I read parts of it, but it's just an interesting way to think about coaching athletics. So I'm wondering about like when you started in as a as a speed skater coach, is it because you were a skater, I can't even speak, speed skater first, or did you like how did that come to be?
Yeah, speed skating is really big in the Netherlands where I grew up.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like hockey here. You have soccer, that's big there too, but then speed skating is a very is the biggest individual sport. It's most watched on TV. So when I grew up in that culture, and my parents and everybody else would just sit in front of the TV a couple of weekends a year, and the country would basically shut down. Everybody would be watching speed skating.
So fun.
And so, yeah, so I grew up with a big love of the sport. Back then, we had a lot of natural ice too, so you could go out on the pond or on a
Mm,
canal
mhm.
in the Netherlands. It's mostly canals in the Netherlands where you
Yeah.
can skate and have a lot of fun. And there's this feeling of freedom when you're out on the ice.
Mm,
It's like skiing, like upper ski, where you're just having a
yeah.
lot of fun. And it's a great atmosphere. And then the performance aspect, yeah, I love that too. I started when I was about 12, and I did okay, but I wasn't as good. But because it was on TV, for some reason, I always connected with the coaches. And so when I was 14, I knew I wanted to be a speed skating coach for my career. And when I was 17, I started coaching. I was very lucky. I was one of the people who knew what they wanted to do with their lives.
Yeah.
Um,
Lucky
so
ones.
my, yeah, and it was at that time, like I had a conversation with my dad when I was 18, when I had to choose the direction where to go in college and what to study. And there was at that time one paid speed skating coach in the Netherlands. Wasn't making a ton of money, and my dad was like, "I don't think you should do this." I got into one of the best economic schools in the Netherlands too, and he's like, "Well, why don't you go there?" And long story short, he made me talk with a couple of people, and I still wouldn't change my mind. And then he basically said, "Well, become the best coach you can be, and then go
Mm,
after it." And so I
mhm.
always kept it in the back of my mind. It's always been very motivating for me to think about what my dad told me. And yeah, I'm very lucky that I worked hard, but you also need chances in life. So people saw that I wanted to be a speed skating coach and showed belief in me. And so I'm very thankful for those chances that I got. And yeah, it subsequently led me to be a national team coach for countries. And so I've worked in the Netherlands, obviously, not for the national team, but I worked for the US and Germany and Canada for the national team. And I've gone to the Olympics for those countries. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Been a really good ride so far. So
Okay, well, I just have to read this out because Lauren, my beautiful coworker, prepared this for me, and that's what I was reading before. So, multiple Olympic gold medal coach. You coached speed skating at 6 Olympics, contributing to 10 Olympic medals. 35 medals. You won 35 medals at the World Singles Distance Speed Skating Championship.
mhm.
10 world records. You've coached and lived in 4 countries: the Netherlands, the US, Germany, and Canada. And you're fluent in Dutch, English, German, and Français. There's
Français ça
Français
va. Not,
encore.
I wouldn't say fluent, but I can save myself. So yes.
So what's it like to, first of all, hear that and also experience that Olympics? What was that like?
Oh, well, to hear it for sure, it makes you realize that you've gone after a dream and you've been able to achieve it. So I hope everybody does that. I think you're doing it with your company. I think it's
Mm,
great. I would encourage people to do that.
mm,
Um, and yeah, to go to the Olympics, it was a lifelong dream for me.
yeah.
So to be there was a big accomplishment, but very stressful at the time too. Of course, you're confident, but when you go into your first Olympics as a coach, you don't know how good you are, and The year before my first Olympics, one of my athletes won an Olympic medal, or no, sorry, won a medal at the World Championships. And for me, that was such a big moment when I realized, okay, I'm actually capable as a coach to bring somebody to win medals at the at World Championships. And then when it happened the next year at the Olympics, one of my athletes won a gold and a silver medal. I was like, wow, okay, this is I can actually do this. And we all kind of need that. We all have the doubt, a little bit of the imposter syndrome until you're actually getting that confirmation that you're good at what you can do. And yeah, so that it made me feel validated. It made me feel um, yeah, like I could trust myself, like I kind of know what I'm doing. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
Kinda.
And
What
so,
that
so yeah, so subsequently in those next six Olympics, more athletes won medals, and that's yeah, with along with the world records, I think is it's great when somebody does something that they've never done before. Like nobody's ever skated that fast, and to be able to coach that and set that up, that's special too. So those are very special moments, and yeah, so it makes me feel yeah, I guess I can say proud about
Yeah. Oh my
what I've gone
goodness.
after. Yeah, yeah. So
Well, congratulations. That's quite the record. And I'm
thank you.
really interested in like what has this taught you about human potential?
Oh, so I think we're limiting ourselves quite a bit.
Mm,
We all have these limiting self-beliefs. And when you're young, you maybe don't know much better. You're just going after your dream, which is great. And I wish we could all keep that mindset of when we're young and believe you can do anything. I think when you're 20, you think believe you can rule the whole world. Most of us do. And you have dreams, and I would encourage people to really go after those. And it's great to have conversations with people about breaking a world record. It you usually have those conversations before they actually break the world record, and
mhm.
so it's a lot about these athletes learning to yeah stop limiting themselves. So they got to believe that they can break the world record. They can do something that nobody's ever done before, and not always easy, but it takes confirmation that happens in practice when you see they can reach certain speeds or they can reach certain speeds for a long period of time. So they get confidence from that. They get confidence from the training they've done, from the training program, hopefully from the team around them, like physical therapist and the coach and everybody around them to feel like they can actually do it. And then when they're actually doing it, or right after they've done it, um, yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. So I think in general people are limiting themselves too much,
Mm,
and people are scared. They have fears. They have doubts, and yeah, I think even what I've learned from this coaching course again is to ask the right questions to maybe bring those out and let people believe more in themselves than they actually are doing. So, um, and they can bring it out themselves, obviously by asking the right questions. So, I've learned to be a more positive coach not only in coaching coaches but also in coaching athletes. So instead of dictating, I'm better at asking questions, and I think asking questions gets perceived way more positively by an athlete than
mhm,
telling them what to do. So it helps athletes grow. It helps athletes feel they own their performance or they own the trajectory where they're going. And I think that gives also a lot more confidence to the athlete. They feel more confident, which enables them to, yeah, believe quicker or earlier that they can actually do something special. So,
Yeah, well, I can imagine even just like taking an athlete through goal setting exercises for training,
mhm.
right? And those
Yes.
incremental steps towards what they want to achieve, but owning some of that goal setting process,
Mhm.
um, it's more empowering, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder, so when you think about physical and mental game in sport. What do you
Mhm.
think is the hardest to coach?
I think it's the mental part,
Mm,
and yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take this course because I felt like I could connect better with people, ask better questions, and then yeah, be a better coach on the mental side of the game. There's obviously our sports psychology too, um,
hmm hmm
but I think coaching happens every day. It happens all the time, and a lot of athletes, and I think a lot of coaches, they kind of go through the motions and don't like when we were talking about self-awareness. I think self-awareness is huge, not just for an athlete, but for a coach as well.
hmm
And um, making athletes aware of not necessarily what they're doing, but how they're doing it and the quality of it. So we call it deliberate practice. You're not just practicing, but you're deliberately practicing a goal, like you're practicing to achieve a goal. So you're after something. You want to think about what you're doing. I think that's it's quite interesting because I started with a new group 2 weeks ago with a new group of athletes. Um, One Olympic champion that I've worked with for the last, let's say, 10 years. But there's some new athletes too, and I'm really challenging them to be self-aware and asking questions about what they're feeling or what they're thinking, what they're doing. And what they're commenting on most is that, wow, they're tired because I asked them to be in the moment and be
Yeah.
aware of what they're doing and asking them to be feeling and thinking through what they're doing and what's happening right in the moment and then to give me feedback. And so some of these athletes have said that they've never been asked or never thought about skating this deeply or to be this
Oh,
much
good.
aware. Yeah, so it's a different way of thinking, and I think I think there's another edge to human performance if it's done deliberately. I think a lot of people rely on talent and maybe are not developing their mental side. They're in the moment ability to work on something and improve on something, and I think that's probably the biggest frontier for sports coaches right now to figure out how to be more aware of themselves and how to get more out of themselves. But I also think the best athletes in the world, they have that self-awareness. They have that ability to give great feedback to the coach and talk about what
Mm-hmm.
works. And I think in that conversation between a coach and an athlete, and I'm seeing it too in between when I'm coaching sports coaches, between the sports coach and myself as a coach, that awareness that like we're evoking, right, as to use
Mm-hmm.
coaching language,
Yeah.
uh, I think is really the next step in sports. So I think sometimes, yeah, like I said, people go too much through the motions and they don't dig deep enough. They're not aware enough in the moment of what they can do in that moment to get better. So
Yeah, well, it does take energy to stay present, for sure.
yes,
And you kind of alluded to something that I wanted to ask you. What's a common thread that you notice among like that level of athlete, that Olympian or that world athlete? What's the thread of, I don't know if it's, well, you tell me, what is it?
yeah, I think they're talented. You can't
Yeah.
deny that. The top athletes work hard. They work harder than anybody else. So you have to have that. But I think that awareness that we're talking about, the self-awareness and the level of feedback that an athlete can give to a coach, helps that coach better and understand the athlete better and write better programs and just have better communication with him and understand the athlete better. So I feel with the elite athletes that I've worked with, that the people that have been winning medals or have been close to winning medals, their awareness is their self-awareness is very, very high.
Mm,
The way they can communicate about what they're experiencing, feeling or thinking, or mentally what they're going through, the way they communicate that with their coach, I think is really, really important. It's a very high level, and they don't allow themselves to go through the motions. They are always trying to get better. They're always deliberately practicing. They're always thinking about what can I do in this moment, like right now, to get better. And yeah, the higher the level of communication and the more the coach is aware to and present to whatever the athlete is um, offering, I think yeah, that communication is crucial. It's key. So um, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'd say talent, hard work, self-awareness, and then being able to communicate that very well to
Yeah.
people. It could also be a physical therapist or somebing like that, but to communicate that very well, I think those are probably the four key aspects of high performance in an athlete. So
Hmm. And I heard you earlier, like mention that when you started, or at least when you started to dream about being a coach for speed skaters, that there was only one coach out there, or being paid for this. How did you carve your path? Like, how did you? Because it's an interesting story of motivation, determination. Having to probably push through some obstacles and barriers. Like, what was that like for you?
well, there are way more paid coaches now, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's gotten a lot better. It's professionalized in a way. But yeah, I was young, and so I went to college first, physical education, because people told me that's the best way to learn about you know the theoretical and the practical side of becoming a coach. So you basically become a physical education teacher, and then
Mm,
afterwards I did some more sports management at university. Um, but yeah, I took every coaching course I could take to learn from speed skating. Um, and you just read, you study, you learn a lot. But when I first worked as a club coach, when I was 17, I worked until I was 22 as a club coach. You don't get paid a lot. It's not a profession. Even as a regional coach, which I was for 5 years after that, it was all expense-based coaching, so no
mm,
salary. So you have to find a way to sustain yourself differently. And I was studying it at the same time too. So um, it's not easy. And even then, when I started as a coach, my first really real paid job was in the US as a regional coach. I wasn't making a lot of money. So it takes determination, it takes direction that where you really want to go, and it takes sacrifice.
mhm.
And I'm lucky because I did get chances to move up, and now I'm making these decent money. But it's still Olympic sports where there's not a ton of money, especially in Canada. I think the investment needs to really increase
Mm,
in Olympic sports for athletes and for staff, no matter what job they have. But I think it was way better when I came after 2010, the Vancouver Home Olympics, Winter Olympics. But funding hasn't increased since that time. So it's a big obstacle now for people to become coaches or even athletes because people are sacrificing. Athletes are postponing their careers, and they don't
yeah.
make a lot of money. So sacrifice is a big part of it, and determination is a big part of it. Um, and yeah, obstacles. Coaches get fired sometimes, or you're moving to a different country because there's a better opportunity. Does your family want to move with you? So we have one son who's now 19, a good soccer player. He's on a scholarship in the States, and
Nice.
D1 scholarship. Loves it. Um,
Yeah.
and so we decided to stay in Canada for a longer period of time to make sure that he had a solid upbringing.
Mm,
I think my wife sacrificed her career because I traveled 4 or 5 months out of the year,
mm,
uh, which meant, you want to have at least, or we chose to have at least one parent stable at home. So, and she wanted to too, but at the same time, she's sacrificing her career by staying at home. So we have this one stable parent with her son all the time.
mm,
Uh, so it takes sacrifices. Yeah, the family's moving to a different country. Our son was born in the U.S., spent 1 year in the U.S., then we went to Germany for 4 years. He grew up speaking German, going to
wow.
school there. But then when he was 5, we moved to Canada again. So big adaptations for children too. Um, and luckily, my wife has always supported this, and my son was fine with it too. We had this conversation when he turned about 10. Hey, I know I'm gone a lot. How is that for you? And yeah, he said, no, you need to chase your dreams too. So he kind of understood that, but at the same time, he was 12, he was 10. So how much doesn't he know? But
Yeah.
I think he's always kind of, I think the time that we spent together when I was there, I think we've had some time together. That was good. So,
Hmm.
but you realize when he turned 12, if I travel 4 months out of the year, I only spent 8 years with him, and I missed 4 years of his life, basically. So those are sacrifices
You
that
added up, yeah.
you
Wow.
you realize sometimes after you're like, was this maybe the best choice or not? And yeah, you never know. You got to make a living too, so it's you don't always have the choice, right? So
Well, and what sounds like, and what we, when I started at Harvard, my passion was educator as coach. I strongly believed that when a teacher or a professor or an educator stands in front of a room of young children, they're modeling healthy behaviors and communication styles and coaching, approaches. Children will model that. They will absorb it. They will start to use it because it's what's being shown to them. So as a parent to a young boy, you're chasing your dreams with discipline and motivation and hard work. We may not be present. I mean, I was a single mom for most of my kids' lives, and they saw me working all the time. I'm at home, thank goodness, and I was able to be here with my kids, but I hope. And now they're 17 and 18, so I can see that they're really disciplined and they're hardworking and they're showing a lot of really great qualities. So modeling is a big part of parenting. I don't
yeah,
know. I think that has a lot to, it speaks for itself.
yeah, probably he's a hard worker too, and he's
Yeah.
doing well in school and in sports, and I think he has a lot of fun too. So I yeah,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
yes,
Fun's
you
good.
might be
Fun's
you might be right. The
yeah,
modeling might be
yeah.
yeah.
So do you think that motivation can be taught or is it intrinsic? Is it something you're born with?
Um, I don't think it's in either or. I think it's always both. I think
Okay.
it's always. I really think nature nurture. I think it's always a combination of both. I think it's yeah, a lot of circumstances. I was lucky to be born in the Netherlands. Otherwise, I would never have been a speed skating coach. I could have been maybe another sports coach,
Right.
but who knows? Did I want to be good? Is that coming from within, or is it because I wanted to please my parents? I don't know, right? There's always, I think it's always a combination of things that are pushing somebody. Um, I think a lot of athletes too, they want to prove something to
Mm,
somebody.
mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so um, I think it's always nature and nurture. So,
And when you see an athlete who has like the physical skill but might be mentally getting in their own way, is that coachable? Like what do you do in those cases?
yes, well, if available, I think a uh, mental support, mental consultant is really crucial. I think they're better trained.
Mm,
Like a sports psychologist is better trained than I am in the mental side. So I think there are daily interactions with an athlete where I think as a coach you have to be very aware of the mental aspects of what's
mm-hmm,
happening.
mm-hmm,
So you manage that and you coach that. But I think sometimes it's better to maybe take it out of the coach's hands and bring it into a specialist where they can dig a little bit deeper. And I think it is important to maybe to then sit down with the three people to have the sports psychologist and the athlete and the coach together in a room to really talk about what's going on. There might be some confidential issues too sometimes that come up that the coach doesn't need to know about.
mm-hmm.
So I think that's important too. But I think a lot of the coaching happens in the daily environment in yeah, with every interaction with an athlete. There is some mental exchange happening. So I think you need to be on the spot. You need to be aware. You need to be present. And I know coaches that are. so we have most of us have two practices a day, and they're drained after the second practice because they just need to be so present, focused, and aware of what's going on all the time. You need to show some self confidence. You need to present yourself a certain way that it's yeah, it can be exhausting. So
Mm-hmm.
and the same
Oh,
for
I
athletes.
see.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the mental aspect of sports usually gets underestimated. So I think if there's two top athletes in the world, I think the number one and two, there's not that much of a difference in physical ability. I think
Okay.
that I think the difference gets made in the mental aspects there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's next for you? What are you pursuing now?
So I want to build out the coaching part of my company a little bit more. So I'd like to get more sports coaches, yeah, to be interested in being coached and being more aware and becoming better coaches on the human side and dealing with their athletes as
Mm,
humans more holistically. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. And the other part is this team that I just started a couple of months ago. Um, I'm super interested to see if that can be built into like a commercial team, like a commercial sports team with sponsors and paid athletes. So that's a dream. I know they happen. These teams exist in the Netherlands, but for example, in cycling, there are very large international teams
mm,
where athletes are true pro athletes. And in speed skating, that's not quite the case. But I'd like to see if we can take the next step and maybe get athletes a little bit more rewards um, for their efforts. So because right now, most Olympic athletes in Canada, they are or all over the world. They're just sacrificing. They're not making a ton of money.
yeah.
They're going to school, but they're delaying their money making ability basically until they're 30 or when they retire. So it's a big investment. So I'd like to see if we can reward them a little bit better. So
Hmm.
and I think, for example, track and fields at the Olympics actually had some yeah, some winnings, some earnings to be had for good performances, even in the Olympics. And I think that's where the Olympics should go to. Um, the let's say the Olympic movement, the International Olympic Committee, that makes a lot of money,
Yeah.
but the biggest actors, the athletes, they don't get paid much, and they sacrifice a lot. And so I'm not really in a position to influence that much, but I would like to see it change, and I think it would be. I think it's important to see it professional athletes more as a, or Olympic athletes see it more as a profession and rewarded closer to what, let's say, a professional basketball player or hockey player receives. So, because they definitely put in the same amount of work. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I would love to see that happen too. And I do believe one person can make a difference. So,
oh yeah,
yeah.
yes, but I don't think I have influence on the IOC. But I think
No.
getting the message out might help. That's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So when you think about coaching, like learning coaching at the academy, kind of in the classroom, and coaching as an athlete, or even coaching coaches, what do you see as a shift for you, or anything that you've noticed since the
yeah.
program?
So I think those the two things I mentioned earlier about coaching the person, not the problem. I think that's a big
Mhm.
one. And then I think that the coachee has the answers. I think those are very interesting concepts that I don't think really exist in sports. Um,
Mhm.
and then the other another concept that I think is super interesting is where you, as a coach, like in the coaching world, not the sports world, you help the coachee or the client understand themselves better. Um, and as a sports coach, I've always been trying to understand the athlete and what they need. But I think the awareness part there might be missing for the athletes. So I think if I help the athlete understand themselves better and they're more aware, then I think that's a step that yeah will definitely bring them to a higher performance, a higher level, and that's kind of where I feel it's a new concept for me, and I still am trying to wrap my brain around it. Like, how can I help the athlete understand themselves better? That's kind of where I feel like I've never approached it from that direction. I've always tried to I've always for myself tried to understand the athlete better, but not I've not helped the athlete understand themselves better as much as this concept makes clear to me. So
Have you read the book The Inner Game of
yes,
Tennis or The Inner
yes,
Game
yeah,
of Golf? Yeah,
yeah, yes,
that
I have it.
those are interesting concepts. But I mean, I
Yeah,
really love what you're saying about bringing these two perspectives into sport as a
okay.
coach and an athletic coach, coaching the person versus the sport, or
Right.
the
Yes.
like the talent, um, and also that that all important questioning of the person's experience in the sport as an athlete is what you're talking about, right? Is that increased
Mhm.
self-awareness, that getting to know yourself, getting to understand your peak performance versus your lower performance and what's happening. That vantage point that the coach has, I think is so powerful.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that you're coaching other coaches is great that you're paying this forward as well, this
Yeah.
idea, this
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I think if I can bring up one more concept from the
Yeah.
coaching world to the sports world, it's the partnering with the client or with the coachee. I think in the sports world too. I think it's especially in team sports. I think it's the coach who decides a lot, who decides the lineup, who plays, who doesn't play. And I think in individual sports there has always been a little bit of partnering, but it has been mostly a transactional world. Feel the sports world. You play well, I'll put you on the team. If you don't play well, no, we'll sell you, right? So, and I think that transactional world is tough and hard, and it makes people insecure sometimes. And I do think partnering with an athlete is something that the younger generation of athletes is looking for too. They want to partner more with the coach. Not saying they want to be friends, but they're looking more for a partnership than ever before.
Yeah.
So they want to be understood. They want to be empowered, like you said. They want to own the process more than ever before. And so that partnering with the client, I think if we apply that to sports more, I think yeah, I think athletes will feel better. They'll have more confidence, and I think coaches will feel better about their relationship with their athletes. And if a relationship is better, I think you're definitely going to get more out of it. So I think that partnering is a to me is also a very interesting concept. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an interesting take on, what's happening now versus where you'd want to bring it, especially for the younger generation. It's the same, we see
Mhm.
the same things. I'm seeing a lot of parallels in the corporate world from what you're talking
Okay.
about too, that the younger
Mhm.
generation, they want to have more value to contribute. They want to feel valued and engaged in the organization. So it's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just helping people to step into their, what challenge what they can do, whether it's
Yes.
corporate or sport, right? It's
Yeah.
helping people discover what are they capable of.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this work, I think. Anyway, well, I'm so grateful that you're paying this forward into athletics and and that
Yeah.
you're out there doing this and I can see that you've really taken some of these concepts and applied them and I'm happy to hear that you're noticing a difference and
Yeah.
yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. Thank you. I wish more coaches, sports coaches, would take this course because I really think it can help them transition and stay current in a changing sports world. I think so.
Hmm. Yeah, well, it's
So
nice to have the bridge that you've brought to this. I really appreciate, hearing
thank
your
you.
perspective on both. And I wish you all the luck in the world with, pursuing more funding for Canadian athletes and also, spreading this work to other coaches.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a
Yeah.
pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. And do you have a website, or do you have something that you want to sort of let people know how to reach you?
Yes, my website is schoutencoaching.com. It's SCHOUTEN, like my last name, coaching.com.
Okay.
And on LinkedIn, Bart Schouten and coaching, they can find me there too. So,
Okay. We'll put that in
yeah.
the show notes for sure. And
Great, thank you.
yeah, and just thank you so much for your time today. It was really a pleasure to get to know you.
You're welcome. Same here. I appreciate it.